Chapter 461. Is she blowing up in the socialite circle? Yes, I learned it for this, Lin Che replied. Situ Chong shook his head. You are really crazy. If you worked harder in a more normal circumstance, you wouldn't have to learn everything at once. At least I didn't embarrass you, she grunted. Gu Jingze was already unhappy with this Situ Chong. He usually wouldn't have so much nonsense to say, or at least that was what Gu Jingze heard. Gu Jingze's expression was cold. He glared at Situ Chong, turned around, and left. Situ Chong naturally caught on the warning of a man. He scoffed as he stood there and shrugged his shoulders nonchalantly. Everybody who watched the competition had still not recovered from the excitement just now. The exciting part was not about the whole competition process, but it was Situ Chong's sudden arrival. And Lin Che's moving scene. She really made so many more lads take a liking to her. They secretly discussed and wondered why they didn't realize that Lin Che was so moving. It was too bad that they discovered it too late. She was already taken by Gu Jingze. In the room, Gu Jingze asked the attendants to bring some medicine for Lin Che. While Lin Che laid on the bed, she saw Gu Jingze dismiss the attendants and personally walk to her with cold medicine. Lin Che hastily asked, how did you know I caught a cold? Gu Jingze shot her a look. You should be telling me why you didn't tell me earlier. Lin Che laid there and pouted. I thought it was no big deal, I thought that I could handle it. Alright, he said and let Lin Che take her medicine. Lin Che could only open her mouth obediently. After taking the medicine, Gu Jingze put it down. She then said excitedly, seriously, I thought I was going to lose. Who would have guessed that Situ Chong would come? I couldn't possibly lose in front of him even if I was dead. Otherwise, it would be so embarrassing. Gu Jingze glanced at her. Really? Lin Che continued, also, I wasn't booed by spectators when I won. I thought everybody wanted Lu Chusha to win. Gu Jingze looked at her. This silly lady was completely unaware that those men were already falling head over heels for her. He replied, you won fair and square. Why would they boo you? That's enough. Just lie down and rest. You still have ballet tomorrow. Oh, that's right. I still have a vicious battle. I can't let my guard down. This medicine won't make me drowsy, right? I don't wish to sleep on the stage tomorrow. Gu Jingze said, this is a newly prescribed medicine. You won't feel anything after taking it, but it will suppress your cold. Many athletes will take this before their competition. It also doesn't contain any prohibited drugs. Wow, there's such a medicine? Lin Che asked in surprise. I didn't know about it before. Gu Jingze replied, you don't need to know if you don't normally take medicine. Lin Che asked, if it's such good medicine, won't it be expensive? It's only 2,000 yuan per piece. Only. That was considered, only. Lin Che just knew that she shouldn't have asked. Meanwhile, Gu Jingze. When he went out, he immediately caught a glimpse of Situ Chong standing outside. Gu Jingze paused, gazed at him and slowly approached him. Do you need something? Situ Chong peered inside. How is Lin Che doing? She is fine. She already took some medicine and is sleeping. Oh, alright then. I'll see her again tomorrow, Situ Chong replied. Gu Jingze narrowed his eyes. I didn't think young Master Chong would be so concerned over Lin Che. I thank you on her behalf. Situ Chong replied, yes, she is my disciple, after all. It's normal for a master to care about his disciple. With that, Situ Chong turned around and left. Gu Jingze narrowed his eyes even more at him. This Situ Chong. The next day. Lin Che never thought that she would become worshipped in this circle in just one day. Early in the morning, people were already sending gifts to her. Our young Master Zan said that this is for Miss Lin. Please accept it. These are excellent tonics that are good for your body, an attendant ran up to her and said sheepishly. On the side. Gu Jingze took the gifts and passed them to the bodyguard behind. Take them for your body. Lin Che looked speechlessly at Gu Jingze. You're just giving them away. Gu Jingze looked at her, stupid, your body is weak from the cold. You can't casually take all these supplements. Furthermore, you've already rested for a whole day but these bodyguards have been standing an entire day. Who do you think needs to supplement their body more? Fine, what he said made sense too. Was he really not fooling around? After taking only a few more steps, another person came with gifts. Miss Lin, our President Wang would like to give you this shawl. He heard that you caught a cold. The wind outside is strong. Please take it to prevent yourself from getting cold. Before Lin Che could do anything, Gu Jingze once again reached out and grabbed it. He tossed it to the attendant behind and said, "The wind outside is strong. Here, take it." Lin Che said, "Gu Jingze, this isn't very nice. People are just being concerned about my health." Gu Jingze replied, "We don't usually use this kind of thing at home. It's not good for the skin." After that, Gu Jingze couldn't bear it any longer. He looked at people with his cold expression. If there was anyone who still dared to give Lin Che gifts, they would no longer dare after being stared at by him. With such a black face along the way, their path was indeed much smoother. Lin Che couldn't help but look curiously at Gu Jingze. "Tell me. There are so many girls admiring you, but none of them has dared to give you anything. Is it because they are all frightened by this gloomy face of yours?" Gu Jingze looked at her and replied plainly, "Of course not." "Then why? You want to know?" Yes, I want to know." Lin Che nodded profusely. Gu Jingze then told the bodyguards to not stop any rich socialite from approaching. Sure enough, someone saw Gu Jingze and immediately ran over. She held some handmade chocolates in her hands and said, "Second young master, I just saw you. I have always wanted to give you my chocolates and let you try my handiwork, but your people are too fierce and refuse to let others get close. Talking about it, I even went to the Gu house before but I just never saw you there. Would you like to try my chocolates?" The girl looked at Gu Jingze. Her face was red hot because it was her first time being in such close contact with him. However, Gu Jingze took the chocolates. But before the girl could be happy about it, Gu Jingze already passed the chocolates to the bodyguard at his side. He then said to the girl in front of him, "Sorry, I don't eat handmade food. Hands contain too many germs." He was implying that she was dirty. The girl blushed. A good, rich princess was instantly degraded to nothing by him. She stomped her foot and ran away angrily. When she left, her eyes were all red. Lin Che watched from behind. She thought speechlessly that this Gu Jingze's mouth was really too vicious. No wonder nobody gave him gifts. Chapter 462, You need to learn how to reject. If Lin Che heard him say this, she would have definitely given him a tight slap. Lin Che said, "You are really such a heartbreaker. I just saw that girl's heart shatter into a million pieces." Gu Jingze replied, "You need to learn this. This is called the art of rejection." No. The people here are mostly filthy rich. I dare not to offend them. Why would my woman be afraid to offend anybody? Lin Che said, "But I believe that these girls are too reserved. That is why they would run away in anger. If it were up to me, I wouldn't run off with what you said. I am a very vengeful person." Gu Jingze looked at her. "Oh, what would you do?" Lin Che laughed and said menacingly, "You look down on my dirty hands, right? I would simply stuff my hand right into your mouth and we'll see if you still think it's dirty or not." Gu Jingze thought that it was indeed something Lin Che would do. However, Gu Jingze saw that Lin Che was still wagging her finger at him. He smiled and bit it. Lin Che froze. Gradually, her eyes widened. Gu Jingze's action was a simply pure temptation. Lin Che blushed. They were still outside and she didn't want anyone to see that. She quickly withdrew her hand. She said to Gu Jingze in a delicate voice, "You're too naughty." Gu Jingze smiled. "You said that you wanted to stuff your hand in my mouth and you're saying that I'm naughty." Lin Che knew that she couldn't win against him. She grunted and said, "I'm ignoring you." At the preparation venue for the ballet competition. Unexpectedly, many people applauded when they saw Lin Che enter. "Lin Che, are you feeling better?" "Miss Lin, I specially watched your TV dramas yesterday. They were great and your acting skills were really fantastic. It made me cry." "Miss Lin, this is a gift card for our family's shopping mall. Please treat it as a gift from me and use it however you like." You see. Lin Che speechlessly thought about how it had only been a day, but these people turned around so fast. Lin Che looked up to see that Gu Jingze was already seated inside and looking back at her with a cold expression. She didn't dare to provoke this devil king again, so she gratefully rejected it and said that she didn't need it as she didn't go shopping. Then, she obediently went to sit beside him. She looked up and said sheepishly, "There are so many fans in the socialite circle too." Seeing that she was still obedient, Gu Jingze softened his expression and looked at Lin Che. Of course, why else did you think that these wealthy ladies would come out and socialize? Naturally, this kind of network is useful. The loyalty of these people will surprise you greatly. Okay, Lin Che withdrew her neck, feeling that she was once again made instantly famous. She was amazed but also weirded out at the same time. Because this time, she was famous in such a wealthy world. When Lu Chusha arrived, she saw that those men who once fawned over her were now ignoring her. She was furious. This damned Lin Che, she clearly didn't do anything, but how did she attract all the attention instead? Lu Chusha looked hatefully in the direction where Lin Che was seated. Lu Chusha grunted and turned back to get ready. Who would have thought that Lin Che would actually win against her yesterday? This was indeed her own misjudgment. She thought that Lin Che wouldn't be able to learn so many things within a month. She never guessed that not only would Lin Che learn them, but she would also even be rather good at them. It looked like that Situ Chong was really not just a rumor. He must have had his own abilities. Lu Chusha changed very quickly. She saw that Lin Che was already nowhere to be seen. She was still puzzled, but she was already in her outfit. She puffed up her chest and walked out. When a white figure appeared on stage, the spectators were shocked at first. Then, they realized that it was Lu Chusha. Lu Chusha was in a slender, white ballet outfit. It hugged her body tightly after the alterations. Ballet outfits were actually not just restricted to tutus. In modern ballet dance, there were many kinds of outfits. She wore a white tutu, but she looked incredibly sexy. Everybody immediately looked at Lu Chusha's good figure. They couldn't help but think that her figure was really too beautiful. Lu Chusha looked at those men's lustful eyes. She clicked her tongue coldly. These men were all the same. That was how Lin Che attracted them to her. It was also actually normal. Fresh faces often appeared in this circle and amazed people. However, they would gradually realize that the most capable one was still Lu Chusha. She was the queen in this circle. It was not easy to maintain it for so many years and to continually be admired by them. Under everybody's applause, Lu Chusha walked up to the stage. Her ballet dance was specially choreographed to match with her sexy costume. It was also extremely charming. Lu Chusha's performance was really comparable to a professional's. The ladies watching were also amazed. Those who learned ballet would know that she was so professional that no mistakes could be pointed out. Some people began to feel worried about Lin Che. How was she going to win like this? Actually, Lin Che shouldn't have agreed to the bet at the start. Lu Chusha's top socialite position was not something that an average person could challenge. Lu Chusha was like a charming vixen. Every look of hers was spot on and attracting all the men there so much that they wanted to jump down to dance with her and enchant her delicate body. At this moment, they already forgot about Lin Che and her beauty. After all, men were all visual creatures. Looking at Lu Chusha like this, they wanted to press the button and rate her. However, logic was still telling them to watch how Lin Che and the others would do. Perhaps there would be a pleasant surprise. Lu Chusha ended in a seductive pose with the music. She looked up at the men in satisfaction. They were all falling head over heels for her. That feeling of adoration once again made her extremely satisfied. However, before she could stand still, someone said, "That must be Lin Che." Lin Che was already at the entrance. That black costume was different from Lin Che's usually clear and easygoing style. Lin Che's tutu was black and it wasn't the usual short ballet tutu. It was a long skirt that trailed behind her on the ground. Her feet and legs were all covered up by the skirt. The silky skirt flowed from her waist down and it looked very relaxing, like a stream of water flowing to the ground. Chapter 463. Her counterattack made her top socialite. If she was going to dance ballet, her dance would not look good with her legs covered by the skirt. After all, this was a dance whereby people watched the legs. Was it because she was afraid that she wouldn't look good because she didn't learn it well? That would really make it all the more obvious. Everyone also knew that judging purely on dancing, Lu Chusha was already very professional. She was indeed hard to beat. Lu Chusha looked at Lin Che. Although she was surprised by that costume, she still scoffed and walked over. She grunted through her nose and said scornfully, "You're always trying to get attention by being different." That makes sense. Once you leave Gu Jingze, you would need to attract all kinds of people to support yourself. Alright, go and attract all these men. Look at all those lads on the stands. None of them may ever be as good as Gu Jingze, but at least they are rich. They'll be able to support you for more than a lifetime. Lin Che didn't look at her. Instead, after Lu Chusha brushed past her, she turned back and called for her backup dancers. When she stood on stage, everyone still couldn't figure what kind of dance she prepared. On stage, Lin Che took a deep breath. This was it. She couldn't think of anything else and everything depended on herself. Thus, she closed her eyes, bowed to the audience, and then listened to the music. It was slowly beginning. All eyes were fixated on her. With the music, Lin Che got into her pose. Suddenly, when the music started, Lin Che jumped into a split. To everyone's surprise, this ballet skirt was long but it flowed with the split. When she stood there, it didn't give away anything. But when she started dancing, her legs were exposed. Her fair legs intertwined with the black silk ribbons, making her slender legs look even more slender. When she pranced around, both sides of the skirt flew and made her look especially ethereal. It was explosive and made everyone's eyes light up. Later on, the audience realized that Lin Che was not performing an ordinary dance routine. She was performing a segment of a short play. The name of this short play was called The Counterattack of the Black Swan. The Black Swan was the most classic treacherous character in ballet shows. The Black Swan would always stand in opposition to the White Swan like the evil witch in a fairy tale. This segment was rearranged and the Black Swan performed by Lin Che was still treacherous. However, it also had her grief and sadness. It was like a character who was evil but in reality, she was being despised as she insisted on her own path. Even though her feet were covered with thorns and her back was burdened with insults, she still continued on her path towards the top. Lin Che danced and pranced. Her expressions were sometimes evil, indifferent, sinister, and extremely vicious. The darkness was prominent. Most of the dance included jumps and spins. It fully utilized the skirt's effect. Everyone was so engrossed in watching her that they didn't look at anything else. Lin Che's stage appeal was outstanding. She was an actress and she knew how to act. Although her dance was not particularly outstanding or professional, she used drama and her acting skills to capture everyone's hearts. Lin Che knew that she couldn't outdo Lu Chusha in terms of professionalism. Thus, she made use of what she was good at to garner attention. Her professional performance shook everybody's hearts. So on that day, she quickly went to her ballet instructor. The two of them spent all the time they had to choreograph this dance for her. The ballet instructor was also very surprised. She didn't think that Lin Che would actually have this ability, however, Lin Che surprised everyone else too. Everyone usually only saw this delicate girl. This was the first time that they saw Lin Che actually perform such an evil role. At the end of her performance, she stood there and her skirt fell back to her sides once again. Her long legs stood straight, showing desolation. The crowd was in total silence. Not a sound was heard except for her heavy breathing. Finally, the crowd roared and applauded. Lin Che was going to win. Lu Chusha watched from behind. She didn't have the time to change out as she watched the crowd outside already go wild. Lu Chusha stood there in a daze. Her face was frozen. How could it be? How could it be? Lin Che won. Lin Che actually won against her. She wasn't willing to believe it, but she had to. Lin Che really beat her. Lu Chusha sat down slowly. She really couldn't believe it, but Lin Che didn't follow what Lu Chusha expected. To think that she would actually come up with such a strange way to help her win. The WW party was not yet over. Everyone was happily talking and saying that this year's WW banquet was really the most interesting one in history. When all these socialites first came, they wanted to give the competition a shot. After all, they all wanted to be the top socialite and win. However, after arriving, they saw that all the attention was on Lin Che and Lu Chusha. Thus, they all naturally gave up. After all, they also understood that Lin Che represented the Gu family while Lu Chusha represented the Lu family. If these two families wanted to compete for victory here, nobody could naturally have the ability to compete with them. Furthermore, Lin Che and Lu Chusha were both so outstanding, beautiful and attractive. So at the end of the competition, they also talked about Lin Che and Lu Chusha with great interest. In the beginning, people were truly only curious about Lin Che. They all guessed that she wouldn't be able to win. In the end, nobody thought that she would succeed in her counterattack, just like in her ballet performance. She caused a turn of events on Lu Chusha, who was usually favored. Now, she earned her place as the top socialite. Gu Jingze very quickly let his attendants pack up. After the final dinner gathering, they would have to leave this small island. Gu Jingze continued working in their room while Lin Che grew bored and walked out to call Yu Minmin. Yu Minmin said, "Congratulations. I already heard that you won." "Thank you. Everybody worked hard for this," Lin Che replied. "But how did you know?" "I heard it from the maids. They said that you saved the day and successfully outcompeted Lu Chusha. You never heard how they praised you until it doesn't even sound like you. They said that you're especially pretty and you enchanted so many men. You have no idea how many guys are clamoring over you and want to get to know you." "No way. Really, being a socialite in this circle is like being a celebrity, to begin with. If you're not a social butterfly, a woman's position in business is already awkward enough. Being a socialite makes socializing and networking easier. Alright, hurry back home. Your movie is going to be screened soon. Hurry back to do some publicity." Chapter 464. Stay away from Lin Che. I know. I'll talk to you later. Situ Chong is here." "What?" Situ also went. Lin Che immediately hung up. She looked at Situ Chong, who was approaching. He smiled at Lin Che. "Why, is Miss Lin free to walk and have a chat with me?" Lin Che replied, "Why not? Well, aren't you the top socialite now? Your appointments must be already filled all the way until the next month. I was just worried about taking up your time by coming here unannounced." "What are you talking about?" Situ Chong looked at her. "I'm not joking. After today, didn't anyone try to get close to you and pull you into some circle or something?" Lin Che asked in puzzlement, "What circle?" Situ Chong replied, "These rich playboys have social circles. There are swimming clubs, cruising clubs, racing clubs. Actually, these are all just networking clubs. Everybody comes together for a little party and expands their social circle." "Really? I've never heard Gu Jingze talk about joining all these. Like Mr. President, he has his own private gatherings, but they are only for the few close friends. Nobody else can dream of being included. However, Gu Jingze is rather special. He became known for not joining any of such gatherings, and that is why you don't know about it." Lin Che said, "But I've never met anyone. In the first place, you are Mrs. Gu and everybody doesn't dare to pull Gu Jingze into any gathering. They might be trying to rope you in right now, but are probably being blocked by Gu Jingze. That is why nobody has invited you. But now, you're famous in this circle. You just defeated Lu Chusha, won the top socialite status, and many guys are fawning over you. Therefore, there will definitely be no lack of people wanting to get to know you." "But I really haven't met anyone." Situ Chong looked at Lin Che. "Maybe Gu Jingze is protecting you too well, so they don't dare to approach you." Lin Che looked up. "Is that so?" Actually, Lin Che had a heck care attitude towards many of Gu Jingze's matters because she wouldn't understand it either. Thus, she didn't ask him either, and this resulted in her not knowing much about his protection. Situ Chong said, "Speaking of that, we've never fenced each other despite all the time we spent." "Yes, you've always had others torture me." When she was learning, Situ Chong always found others to be her partner while he stood at the side and scolded her annoyingly. Situ Chong asked, "Do you want to fence with me?" Lin Che looked inside. Gu Jingze would probably take a while and the maids were still packing up. Lin Che nodded graciously. "Alright, let's try." In the fencing room, Lin Che and Situ Chong changed into their suits and picked up their swords. Lin Che called out, "Begin." The two of them started fencing without a referee. Actually, Lin Che was a rather fast learner and she seemed rather talented when it came to this aspect. Thus, she looked and moved like the part now. However, Situ Chong defeated her easily within moments. She could not retaliate at all. Lin Che stopped helplessly and called out to him, "Forget it. You're not competing with me at all. You're just out to torture me. Seriously, you didn't even take pity on me. I don't want to fight anymore." Situ Chong laughed and sat down as he looked at Lin Che. "Have some sportsmanship. If I'm always giving in to you, then I'll only be looking down on you." Lin Che looked at Situ Chong. He looked much more handsome in the fencing suit than he did usually. When he fenced, his movements were smooth fluid. It was as if the sword was already a part of his body and he looked especially good. Lin Che admired him a lot. She looked at Situ Chong and said, "You are really good at fencing." Situ Chong replied, "Of course, how else could I be the top socialite's master?" "Idiot, you're mocking me again." Situ Chong looked at Lin Che's smile and paused. He noticed that her leg was still bandaged. "Your leg." Lin Che looked at it and said, "Oh, it's all right. I just wasn't used to ballet practice at the beginning." Situ Chong gazed deeply at her relaxed face. Then, someone from outside came in and whispered something to him. He then said, "Gu Jingze is here for you." "Really? Then I'll be going." Situ Chong nodded and watched her get up to leave. Actually, he really didn't think that Lin Che would be able to win against Lu Chusha. However, what was surprising was that she really won. Housekeeper Chen saw Situ Chong and stared frozen at his fencing suit. Who would have thought that young Master Chong would actually wear his fencing suit once again because of Lin Che? This was way too shocking. Lin Che walked out and saw that Gu Jingze was indeed outside. Lin Che ran to him and asked, "Are you done with your work?" "Yes, I'm done. Let's go. I'll take you for a walk." "Really? That's great. I've been so nervous the past few days and haven't had the chance to explore this place. And it's also my first time at a small island like this," Lin Che said. Gu Jingze turned back to look. He could see Situ Chong's figure through the glass. He seemed to be wearing a white fencing suit. "Were you guys fencing just now?" "Yes. I've been learning for some time and wanted to give it a shot, but he was too good and I was no match for him at all," Lin Che said with admiration. Gu Jingze looked at her. "Is he very good?" Lin Che nodded. Yes, very good." Gu Jingze narrowed his eyes and said, "Go change your clothes. We're going to the seaside." "Oh, all right." Gu Jingze watched Lin Che leave before turning around. Situ Chong was already out. He looked at Gu Jingze and asked, "Does President Gu have something to say to me?" Gu Jingze narrowed his eyes and looked at Situ Chong. After a long pause, his throat moved, "Stay away from Lin Che." Situ Chong didn't say anything and looked silently at him. Gu Jingze also didn't say anything else. He turned around to leave, his figure ominous. When Lin Che returned, she saw that Gu Jingze's eyes were dark. She was puzzled. "What is it, Gu Jingze? Did something happen?" "Nothing. That Situ Chong is a weird person. It's better to stay away from him." "Really, I'm really confused. Why does everyone love to say that he is weird? I really think that he is rather normal. He is just annoying when he talks." "Never mind. I'll take you to the seaside." Because there was no farming here, the sea was extremely beautiful. Lin Che looked at it. The sky and sea were vast. She said, "Who would have thought that Lu Baikan would have pretty good taste? It's really a good idea to use this place for recuperation. To be able to go fishing and strolling every day, what a good life." Gu Jingze replied, "Yes, Baikan has always been unruly and doesn't like being tied down. Actually, I disagreed with him and Jingyan being together because he is a negative influence on Jingyan." "Oh, okay, but it's fine as long as they think they are compatible. They are married now. Why do you care so much?" "Yes, I should care about you more instead." He bent his head and tugged her ear. This disobedient little lady should really be looked after more. Coming here this time, she was so inviting. He still hadn't properly taught her a lesson. He wanted to see if she still dared to be so attractive next time. Chapter 465. First, you need to have a husband who can fish. However, he already knew long ago that Lin Che was a piece of jade. She could be transformed into something even more exquisite, but he just didn't want to. Watching Lin Che slowly grow up beside him was also an enjoyable thing, wasn't it? Gu Jingze put an arm around her shoulders. Come on, let's go there. What for? Lin Che asked strangely. I got a boat from Lu Baikan. Didn't you say you wanted to experience life on a fishing boat? Let's go fishing. Wow, really? That's fantastic. Lin Che followed him with glee. When she reached and saw a rather large yacht, she wanted to ask if that was a fishing boat. I thought it would be like those open-top boats like in ancient times. This yacht was neither too big nor too small. It had a room where one could rest and relax. In front was a cockpit for the captain. Gu Jingze heard her and replied, how would we sit in that kind of boat? They could still see visitors at the side, looking at this couple on the yacht. There was a small table on top filled with drinks and fruits. Gu Jingze leaned into his lounge chair and held the fishing pole. The visitors looked at this pleasant scene from afar and were really envious. Some even asked where this yacht was rented from. Others told them that there was an event for countless wealthy people on the island recently. The private airport was specially opened for these wealthy people, and this was probably some wealthy person's voyage. The yacht would be their own and not rented. They realized that it was a game for the wealthy, so they didn't ask any further. On the yacht, Lin Che appeared to hold her fishing pole professionally but didn't catch anything. She wondered if she was doing it wrong, so she changed her position again. However, she could only watch Gu Jingze reap a bountiful harvest beside her. Within moments, he had already caught a few small fish flopping about in his bucket. Lin Che asked speechlessly, why can't I catch anything? Talk more and even I'm not going to be able to catch anything, Gu Jingze replied as he looked at Lin Che. Lin Che said speechlessly, I don't care, I don't care. If I can't catch anything, don't think about catching any more. Quick, tell me, how exactly do you fish? Gu Jingze sat up a little and looked at Lin Che. Do you really want to know how to fish? Lin Che nodded vigorously. Gu Jingze smiled and gestured to her. Come here. Lin Che looked at his faint smile and was a little stunned. She asked, what are you trying to do? Gu Jingze replied, don't you want to know? Come here and bribe me. Maybe I'll tell you then. How do I bribe you? Gu Jingze frowned and looked at Lin Che impatiently. He pulled her into his arms in a split second. Lin Che yelped and fell into his embrace. Gu Jingze hugged her. Under the blue sky and the vast ocean, he held the woman in his arms and kissed her lips gently. The tip of his tongue twirled around her lips and then he took her into his mouth. He slowly teased her tongue and wrapped himself around her delicate body. Outside, people were watching this entire scene. The couple hugged as the sea breeze blew their clothes. They looked so good. Watching from afar, that image of them kissing didn't seem disgusting at all. Instead, it was extremely beautiful, like a scene out of a romantic movie. It made people want to appreciate it. Some people said from the shore, rich people really know how to enjoy. They're kissing on the yacht. Wow, that man is so handsome. His figure looks especially good too. How nice it must be to be kissed by him. Indeed, if only the woman in his arms was me. When he was done kissing, he released her but did not let her get up. He continued hugging her waist as he looked down at the waves crashing below. There was no movement on the fishing roads. It was almost as if the fish didn't want to disturb the couple's intimate moment. Gu Jingze and Lin Che enjoyed the peace and quiet together. Neither of them was willing to move. The sun appeared very big, especially when they were at sea. The ultraviolet rays were very strong, but Lin Che actually wasn't afraid of getting tanned. A big man like Gu Jingze was also not worried about getting tanned. Under the strong sun rays, his entire person was exposed to the sunlight so much that he couldn't keep his eyes opened. That leisurely appearance was very beautiful. Lin Che found a comfortable position and leaned against his body. She looked up to see his handsome face. After some thought, she warmly reached out and hugged his waist. His muscles really felt nice in her hands. She enjoyed hugging his waist and feeling his muscles just like that. Until the sun went down, Lin Che still didn't remember that she wanted him to teach her fishing. When she recalled it, she got up and said, "Oh right, you haven't taught me fishing." Gu Jingze asked, "You? It's actually pretty easy if you want to fish." "Really? How?" "First, you marry a husband who knows how to fish. Then, you simply sit there and watch him catch all the fish." He smiled as he pulled up his small box and said to her, "Wouldn't you have your fish?" Why you Gu Jingze, you liar. You're a big fat liar." Lin Che started hitting him and he didn't try to avoid her. It didn't hurt anyway, he only sat there and laughed in his deep voice. The yacht was slowly approaching the shore. Laughter came from the side. "Oh my, am I seeing what I'm seeing? Someone dares to hit Gu Jingze." Lin Che quickly stopped and saw that the person was Lu Baikan. Gu Jingze held Lin Che and didn't hide either. His expression was normal as if nothing happened. Lin Che sometimes felt that Gu Jingze's ability to change expressions was extraordinary. In such a short time, there was no trace of change at all. On the other hand, Lin Che could never be so calm. She blushed. Because the way she kicked up a fuss was like a child and she was seen by someone else. Gu Jingze said, "Here's your boat." Lu Baikan replied, "Okay." He looked deeply at Lin Che who was behind. If this happened in the past, if someone hit Gu Jingze, that person would have disappeared from C Nation long ago. It was so different from now. Gu Jingze knew how to play around now. Perhaps it was only just for Lin Che. If it were others, they could only dream of doing such a thing to Gu Jingze. Lu Baikan said, "I came to tell you that there'll be dinner tonight. My father has arranged a banquet at home." Lin Che heard this and grew uneasy. After all, she had just won against Lu Chusha for the top socialite position. Although this title was really nothing useful, she would still feel awkward if she met Lu Chusha. As if understanding her unease, Lu Baikan said, "Don't worry about Chusha kicking up a fuss. She has already taken the plane and left earlier." Chapter 466. Their couple dynamics is really strange. Lin Che laughed awkwardly as she felt exposed. Gu Jingze turned back to look at Lin Che and said, "All right. We'll be there at night." Lin Che and Gu Jingze went to Lu Qinyu's villa at night. Lu Qinyu looked at Lin Che and congratulated her. "Congratulations, little Che. I heard that you performed wonderfully. It's a pity that I didn't go to watch. However, it's natural that you managed to gain everyone's acknowledgement." Lin Che smiled and thanked him. She saw that Gu Jingyan was also there. Looking at Lin Che, she smiled and said, "I only managed to come here after I finished my work the past couple of days. In the end, the competition is already over." Lu Qinyu said, "Next time, just let Baikan handle all these things. The company is run by both of you. You don't have to be so stubborn. Leave some things to Baikan. Isn't it good to spend more time outside?" Gu Jingyan smiled. "I think so too, but we divided our work. I do my part a bit slower and I have no way of leaving halfway. Furthermore, I've already heard that Lin Che and Chusha dominated these few days. Other socialites were all interested in participating too, so I decided not to join in." She continued, "I cannot win my sister-in-law anyway, right?" Lin Che blushed and asked, "How can that be? These are just clever tricks. People like you who run a company are the smart ones. It's a pity that I don't know how." Lin Che stuck out her tongue. Gu Jingyan said, "With second brother around, there's no need to think so much." "Right, second brother. You will always have sister-in-law's back and protect her." Lu Qinyu let the attendants prepare and let the group of young people sit down for a chat. Lu Baikan said, "I saw Chusha leave crying in the morning. I think she must be gravely affected this time." Lin Che said sheepishly, "I'm sorry. We were being so childish at that point. That was why we had such a bet." Lu Baikan replied, "It's all right. She is too used to being so arrogant. It's good to teach her a little lesson so that she will know that however strong she is, there'll be someone stronger than her out there." Gu Jingyan said, "Also, sister-in-law, you are indeed capable. This competition was very fair and you didn't win because of whom you were with. You made all these high and mighty wealthy playboys take a liking to you and admire you. Clearly, you deserve to do it." Gu Jingyan looked at Lu Baikan. "Your Chusha is usually too much. Everything else is fine, but the way she treats my sister-in-law is really overboard. It's no use saying it. I'm not going to talk to her again this time. She should be able to learn from this lesson herself. Lu Baikan said, I didn't ask you to talk to her. Yes, but since I'm married into your family, I should carry out my duties, unlike someone who doesn't know his responsibilities after marriage. Lu Baikan looked at her. Tell me directly if you want to. What's the point of beating about the bush? There are no outsiders here, so what are you afraid of? This is called beating about the bush. I believe I've been direct enough. Lin Che quickly looked at Gu Jingze. She didn't know what to do. How did they start to quarrel? Gu Jingze received the cue from Lin Che. He raised his brow and got up, pulling Lin Che together with him. He said, all right, we're going out for a walk. It's too stuffy in this room. Lin Che nodded. She looked back at the couple and then hastily left. Only the two of them were left in the room. Lu Baikan stood up. That's just great. You let your brother witness our perfect marriage this time. Did you think that a clever person like him wouldn't already have known? Lu Baikan stood up and walked towards the door. Gu Jingyan also stood up. It was bad timing as she bumped into a maid who was bringing some things to them. The tea spilled all over Gu Jingyan and she shouted in pain. The teapot also fell and shattered on the ground. The maid's face turned pale and she quickly said, young madam, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to. Lu Baikan, who had just opened the door and was about to walk out, heard the commotion. Gu Jingyan seemed fine. Although she was frustrated, she still said, I'm fine, I'm fine. In the next moment, Lu Baikan pushed the maid to the side. How do you do your job? He pushed the maid aside as he took Gu Jingyan's arm. Her fair arm was scalded red. The maid shivered in fear behind. Lu Baikan turned to her and said, what are you still looking at? Quickly get some medication. Don't you know how to do your job? Why yes. The maid quickly went to fetch the medication. Seeing that the maid looked so frightened, Gu Jingyan said to Lu Baikan, that's enough. You're so scary. She didn't do it on purpose either. Shut up. Will just saying that it was not on purpose suffice? What is she doing? It's such a small matter and she couldn't do it properly. Everyone makes mistakes. I don't need you to interfere when I'm managing my subordinates, Lu Baikan said impatiently as he looked up. Gu Jingyan retorted, this is called interfering. I'm giving you a suggestion. It's a suggestion, get it? That's enough. If someone else brings it up to me, it can still be a suggestion. If it comes from you, which one of your suggestions was not out to oppose me through all these years? That's what you think. What can I do about your paranoia? I'm not going to argue over whether I'm being paranoid or you just like harming me. It's pointless anyway, you vicious snake of a woman. To you, everything that you do is right. It's as if you don't care about what anyone else thinks. Ha, yes, I'm vicious. Why are you bothering me then? Let go of me. This is my hand. However, I scald, it has nothing to do with you. Gu Jingyan pushed Lu Baikan away. Being pushed to the side, Lu Baikan looked at her icy face and fumed. Fine, I'm being too nosy. I won't care if you scald yourself to death. Do you really think that I care about you? He said angrily, I was angry because my subordinate couldn't do a proper job. Care about you? You were only lightly scalded. Who's going to care about you? Gu Jingyan looked stubbornly at him. What a pity. Villains live for centuries and I simply can't die. It's nothing much this time, anyway. It's just red for a while. At this moment, the maid hurried back and even specially called their family doctor over. But the two of them were standing on separate sides with dirty looks on their faces. The maid was at a loss and didn't know what to do. Lu Baikan stared back at Gu Jingyan and told the people who came in to not bother about her. She said that she didn't need treatment, so get lost. Quote. The doctor said, young Master Chen's scalds should still be examined. What's there to examine? She asked for it. Gu Jingyan said, that's enough. If you want to oppose me, just come straight at me. Why must you always scold others around you? Lu Baikan glared angrily at Gu Jingyan, opened the door, and then walked out. The maid stood there uneasily. Chapter 467. when she returned, everyone wondered if she ran away. Gu Jingze couldn't be bothered with him and said, "Alright, you guys can leave. It's just a scald, it's fine." Gu Jingze knew that he had her interest at heart. It was just that there was too much friction between them that they gradually could no longer hold a good conversation with one another. They only thought about venting their anger whenever they met. She wanted to oppose him and he also wanted to oppose her. With them treating each other this way, it implicated others around them. Outside, Lin Che looked at Gu Jingze. "Is it all right to leave them in there?" "Of course, it's all right. What could happen?" Gu Jingze asked. "But they seem to be arguing." "It's normal for husband and wife to argue. But they're newlyweds. Isn't it rather abnormal to quarrel?" Gu Jingze said, "They've known each other for years and are already past that honeymoon stage. Furthermore, they've always been bickering before that. You'll get used to it." "No way there is such a thing," Lin Che said. "If they are always bickering, why didn't they break up instead of marrying each other?" "What do you think?" "I think that this is simply true love. They quarrel so much but they still refuse to leave one another." Tisk tisk. Gu Jingze smiled and looked at Lin Che. This girl had such a special way of thinking. Gu Jingze said, "But they do indeed fight a lot. When they were in school, it was exactly the same. They always end up fighting." "Oh, it's also possible that they're both unusually lucky. It's hard to accommodate two tigers on a mountain." Just then, they suddenly saw Lu Baikan come out. His expression was so ugly and dark. He was fuming fiercely. He glanced at Gu Jingze and then walked past with his darkened face without stopping. Lin Che looked up to see that Gu Jingze's face was still the same. Again at this moment, the Lu family maid came out. She saw Lin Che and Gu Jingze stand there and said embarrassingly, "Young madam was scalded just now and the two of them ended up quarreling." "How is her scald?" Lin Che quickly asked. The maid replied, "It's not serious. The doctor is already inside. Young madam and young master often like to bicker. I hope Mr. and Mrs. Gu don't mind." Lin Che replied, "Not at all, as long as they are okay." The maid said, "They are okay. It's already not so bad this time. Thankfully, nothing was thrown about." "Ah, they'll still get physical?" Lin Che asked. "Yes, we've already seen it too many times. It is very common for them to fight. However, young master would never be able to win young madam. One time, young master was even kicked off the bed by young madam. Young master was so angry that he didn't come back for a few days." Just then, Lu Qinyu cleared his throat behind them. The talkative maid quickly shut her mouth, lowered her head, and left. Lu Qinyu looked inside and took a deep breath. Seriously unfilial. Lin Che also didn't understand the way they interacted, but perhaps it was just like how she and Gu Jingze were. It was merely different. As long as the two of them thought that it was fine, others didn't have a right to interfere. After having dinner with the Lu family that night, Lin Che and Gu Jingze rushed back to B City. The next day, Lin Che first showed up at her crew's gathering. Because the film production was already at its end, the crew was all preparing for the publicity period and were running here and there. Lin Che disappeared for a long time and now that she was finally back, everyone all surrounded her to greet her. "Where the hell did you go? I didn't hear from you at all." Lin Che laughed and said, "It's nothing. I just had to handle some personal matters at home." "Really? There were rumors outside saying that because of that Qin Wanwan, you were killed off by the company." Lin Che asked speechlessly, "How can that be? Why would the company kill me off? They didn't. I took some time off from the company to handle my matters." "Exactly. We also guessed that it was impossible. Oh right, congratulations on being nominated for the Gold Medal Award. It is a good head start for our movie. It's because of everyone's combined efforts." Lin Che spoke to everyone politely. When she saw Song Shuai approach, she smiled and said, "Sister Shuai, you're here too." "Yes, you're back." Song Shuai sized Lin Che up. "I feel that your body has changed quite a bit." Lin Che looked at herself strangely. "Is it very drastic?" "Which part?" "You don't look so thin anymore. You look more firmed up and your figure looks even better now. Did you secretly went to condition your body?" Song Shuai smiled and asked. Lin Che looked down and asked, really? I have indeed been training quite a fair bit recently, but I never noticed any changes in myself. Of course, the change is very obvious. It's just that you didn't notice it yourself. Lin Che also thought the same way. This month-long secret training was firstly for her to handle the WW party. But now, it resulted in her body being conditioned and trained. This was also considered a side benefit. Song Shuai continued, but people in the company still said that you took time off to change your image. Song Shuai and her were in the same company. She would naturally hear a lot of gossip. Lin Che said speechlessly, how can that be? I don't have that kind of spare time. That's what I said too, but you still need to keep your guards up. This Qin Wanwan is not an easy person to handle. Song Shuai was also an experienced person. She was familiar with this kind of harmful tactic from the company. Thus, she was now also giving Lin Che support. Lin Che smiled, there is always a solution to a problem. It's a fair fight for everyone and I'm not afraid of her. Well, a newborn calf is not afraid of tigers. Sigh, I can't do that. I'm now afraid of something happening suddenly. Everyone looked at Lin Che and all felt that she really changed. They sat down and discussed the promotions after. Looking at the promotional materials, Lin Che thought that there must be a reason for the gold medal award to approve of their movie. Everything was crafted so well that it was comparable to Hollywood's. This was really Gu Jingze's work. After that, Lin Che returned to the company. The people there really thought that she ran away. Seeing her return, they couldn't help but look at her. Lin Che didn't bother about it and went to settle something first. She put all those curious stares at the back of her mind. Everyone looked at Lin Che go out and said, Lin Che still dares to come back. I thought she really ran away. I thought that she was going to jump to another company to distance herself from Qin Wanwan and avoid competition. Now, it looks like she is not as capable as Qin Wanwan. It's probably because she felt that she couldn't win Qin Wanwan these few days, so she went into hiding. Just then, Lin Che received a call from Situ Chong. He simply said, I'm at the entrance of your company. Come out for a bit. Lin Che was stunned and quickly ran out. Those people at the entrance who were just talking and saying that Lin Che couldn't do it were surprised to see Lin Che run back out towards a posh car parked outside the entrance. The person who got out of the car made everyone even more shocked. Whoa, no way, is that Situ Chong? Situ what? Young Master Chong, haven't you heard of him? Chapter 468. Young Master Chong is very happy to meet you. Young Master Chong never heard of him. Is he some celebrity? He is filthy rich and was especially famous back then, probably about 5 or 6 years ago. He represented C Nation in fencing competitions and was the champion. People later dug out information on his background and realized that he was a young master of the Situ family. The Situ family is the king of ships and they rule the shipping industry. That is an extremely remarkable family and he is the successor of the Situ family. He is super rich. He is so capable. Sigh, is that young Master Chong? He looked so handsome. Yes, those women who watched him fence that year practically filled up the entire training hall. Fencing is a knightly sport and he is so handsome. He looked like a British prince. Everyone all thought that Lin Che was disadvantaged now. However, when it looked like she was forced to run away, she made everyone witness that she actually knew such a wealthy person. This time, everyone's jaw really dropped. They watched Lin Che and Situ Chong converse happily. It looked like their initial thought that Lin Che was burned out was definitely a rumor. Those who gathered in the company to see Lin Che become a joke were immediately slapped in the face. As they looked outside, they couldn't help but feel ashamed. Lin Che didn't need their judgment at all. They thought that Lin Che was in a tragic state now, but it turned out that she was doing more than just fine and the people she knew were so powerful. This was clearly a huge slap across their faces. Lin Che was also actually very surprised that Situ Chong was here. Situ Chong only said that he wanted to treat her to a meal. Lin Che was rather embarrassed. Why did he want to treat her? And it was just the two of them at that. Situ Chong did not give her a chance to reject and simply asked, what's the meaning of this, Lin Che? Are you just going to reject me like that? You won now and became the top socialite, so now you're ignoring me. You're really kicking me to the curb now that I've outlived my usefulness. Not at all, it wasn't because of this reason. Situ Chong said, hey, I've been your master before. In one day a teacher, in a lifetime a bastard, in a lifetime, a what? A what? Lin Che waved her fist about. If he really said that he was her father, she would immediately punch him. Okay, I'm just joking. In any case, you can't deny that I'm your master. Yes, you are my master. Shouldn't you treat your master since you won? Okay, I'll treat you to a meal. Lin Che was speechless. She could only get into his car and buy him a meal. Situ Chong was extremely satisfied and took her to a restaurant. They ate very quickly. They were actually already very familiar with each other when they trained together, so they were more open with each other when they talked. This meal turned out to be very enjoyable. In the middle of the meal, Situ Chong went out to receive a call. Housekeeper Chen came in and looked at Lin Che. His smile was a lot warmer now than when he saw Lin Che for the first time. He said, Miss Lin, young master is really very happy that you could come. Lin Che smiled and asked, really? I thought that he liked to smile. That's because he's with you. You have no idea, Miss Lin, housekeeper Chen sighed and said. Ever since young Master Chong couldn't fence anymore and he was forced to give up what he loved, he fell deep into the shallow waters and refused to interact with anyone. People outside gradually said that young Master Chong has a weird character and he doesn't like to appear outside. Actually, young Master Chong used to be a very happy person. He loved coming out and he also loved being with his fans. He often smiled. Lin Che heard this and looked at him in surprise. Your young Master Chong had to give up what he loved. What do you mean by that? Was he forced to give up fencing? Yes, he used to go for competitions frequently and he would get a good placing every single time. He could have gone further in this career, but old master said that this was only for playing and brought him back home. He was no longer allowed to continue fencing. He objected, but old master used brute force. In the end, he agreed to it. Ever since he returned to the Situ household and started managing the family business, he was no longer happy. Now, the reason why we can see young Master Chong so happy again is because of Miss Lin. Lin Che said, I'm not that useful. Really, Miss Lin, it's probably because you are so energetic that it ignited the young master's passion. It is like letting young master continue in his career. In any case, young master hasn't come out to eat with anyone in a very long time. This time, it is all because of you. Lin Che heard housekeeper Chen's words and looked in front. In her heart, she thought that perhaps all these wealthy young masters were really not that happy. Gu Jingze was often so busy that he forgot about his own life. But luckily, he liked to work, he liked making money, and he liked business. If it was someone who doesn't like all these but was forced to be trapped like this, one would definitely not be happy. Looking at it this way, Situ Chong was really pitiful. Situ Chong soon came back and fetched Lin Che home. At the Gu house, he said, let's go fencing another time. Lin Che replied, okay. I'll beat you to a pulp then. Please, even if you trained for another 10 years, you will never win against me. Don't underestimate me, humph. Lin Che laughed with him, got out of the car, and walked towards the door. Situ Chong watched Lin Che from the outside and smiled subtly. At the Gu residence, Gu Jingze was in the study room when he saw a car speed past outside. He paused and then asked the housekeeper, is that madam? Yes, sir. Madam had dinner with a friend and is now home. Friend? Gu Jingze's eyes narrowed dangerously. Go find out who was that friend who brought madam back home. Find out who that person is. Yes, sir. When he went out, he saw Lin Che humming as she stood and packed her things. Are you very happy? Gu Jingze asked. Lin Che looked up. Oh, yeah, what's up? Gu Jingze's eyes deepened, his gaze becoming much more dangerous. Stay away from that Situ Chong in the future. Without waiting for Lin Che to say anything, Gu Jingze already opened the door and went straight into the bedroom. The bedroom door closed right in front of her eyes. Lin Che could only stand outside as she looked at the door. She was exasperated. She hadn't had the chance to explain what was going on between her and Situ Chong. They were just friends and, at the very most, master and disciple. Lin Che walked to the door. Gu Jingze, what are you doing? Situ Chong was nice enough to teach me fencing for free. Of course, I have to be nicer to him. I can't be so ungrateful. She pushed the door but heard it get locked from the inside. No way Gu Jingze was actually this petty. Lin Che stood there and stomped her feet. Gu Jingze, open the door. Explain yourself. What is the meaning of this? Are you jealous? Was he jealous? Was his jealousy that great? That was not like Gu Jingze at all. Gu Jingze opened the door and looked at Lin Che. That handsome face of his was covered in darkness. Chapter 469, Encounter with an Arrogant Love Rival. Lin Che, why would Situ Chong get close to you for no rhyme or reason? He obviously has a motive. You will be cheated by him with that intelligence of yours. So, I'm warning you to stay away from him. Otherwise, when you get cheated of everything, don't come to me for help. Lin Che speechlessly said, I don't think that Situ Chong has an ulterior motive. Don't think that every single person is a villain. If I treated everybody like an angel like you do, I would have long been eaten up alive in the business world. Gu Jingze narrowed his eyes at her. In any case, you're not prepared to listen to me and you're still going to see Situ Chong, right? Lin Che froze and hesitated. Situ Chong was a friend to her but now, they couldn't even meet. That brief moment of hesitation already made Gu Jingze furious. He scoffed coldly and immediately slammed the door shut. Hey, what's wrong with you? Open the door. What are you doing? Lin Che knocked on the door but heard a click-clack sound. He locked the door from the inside. Lin Che was immediately enraged. What was the meaning of this? She hasn't said anything and he was already so mad. Lin Che said to the door, fine. Gu Jingze, you're not opening the door for me, right? So be it, you childish person, tyrant, bully, heartless, cold-blooded, busybody, you. Lin Che's head was bursting and couldn't think of any more words to describe him at that moment. She simply turned around and walked out. Outside, the maids looked at one another. Were they quarreling? All right then, it looked like they were not going to have it easy over the next few days too. The next day, Lin Che and Yu Minmin were preparing to participate in an activity. Yu Minmin saw that she looked gloomy and asked, what happened to you? You totally crushed Lu Chusha this time. Why are you still so unhappy? Lin Che replied, it's nothing. I'm just a bit tired. Yu Minmin replied speechlessly, okay. After some thought, she said again, why are you tired? It's still broad daylight and you're so lethargic you didn't seem to have an appetite when eating just now either. Hey, are you pregnant? Lin Che immediately smacked her. Idiot, what are you thinking? What would be wrong with that? You're with Gu Jingze every day. Isn't it normal if you get pregnant? Do you think that Gu Jingze is that kind of person who would do something so uncertain? We take very comprehensive measures. Yu Minmin said, that's not for certain. The prevention rate for condoms is only 99%. That means in 100 couples, there will be one couple who will get pregnant. Fine, I'll tell you. It's because of that idiot Gu Jingze. He's angry because I'm close to Situ Chong. Wow, is he that jealous? Yu Minmin asked. Lin Che replied, well, he is just so annoying. Situ Chong and I are just friends. He can't stop me from having friends, right? Yu Minmin had never seen Situ Chong, so she couldn't comment on that. But just at that moment, someone suddenly saw Lin Che and took off their sunglasses. Miss Lin, I didn't expect to meet you here. Lin Che froze and saw that the person in front of her was a stranger. However, they were at the event venue. No fans could possibly have entered. Lin Che was still puzzled when the man introduced himself. I saw Miss Lin's ballet performance and was very moved. Miss Lin, you are really very good. Oh right, I'm from CC Super Run Club. Are you interested in joining our club? It turned out to be some family's young master who attended the WW party. She smiled and quickly took his name card. I'll think about it, but I don't really have an interest in race cars. He heard this and wanted to elaborate on his passion. Thankfully, the event organizer was here and Lin Che hastily excused herself. Yu Minmin said, no way. Even a supercar club wanted to rope you in. You are really popular. Lin Che was annoyed and couldn't be bothered about it. Yu Minmin said, this is a wealthy person. Oh my, so many rich men have become your suitors. Lin Che, you must not forget me in the future. Stop it. Just then, Lin Che received a call from Situ Chong. She handed her phone to Yu Minmin and didn't care to answer it. She headed to the event. On the other side, Gu Jingze looked at Situ Chong. Situ Chong tossed his phone into his pocket. He gazed at Gu Jingze's posture. It is rare of you to drop by, President Gu. What brings you here today? Gu Jingze said, I warned you to stay away from Lin Che. Situ Chong replied, but I don't think I gave you an answer. Gu Jingze narrowed his eyes. She is already married to a husband. I don't think I need to remind you of this. You didn't say that she was forced to marry you. While you may be husband and wife, you two are no ordinary husband and wife. Gu Jingze raised his brow. Situ Chong said, want to know how I knew about all these? I may not go out often, but I still have ears to pick up anything from the outside. Gu Jingze replied, still, she is my wife. Only for now, Situ Chong said. I don't think you are ultimately the best choice for her. Lin Che deserves a good man who will love her. Situ Chong, don't go overboard. Gu Jingze's voice was icy and his expression was cold. Situ Chong was really not afraid of anything or anyone. If anybody else were to see Gu Jingze like this, they would already have been scared off. However, Situ Chong kept his faint smile as he looked at Gu Jingze. As men, we can have a fair fight when we face a good woman. We will see who she chooses in the end. He was being way too much. Gu Jingze smiled coldly. You are indeed bold. Situ Chong said, you should have been prepared. Lin Che is very attractive. She shines and this makes many people like her. You can never hide her. Gu Jingze's face sank. Situ Chong said, I'll admit that I like Lin Che and I have feelings for her. So when you ask me to stay away from Lin Che, I can't do it. I don't care if she's married or not. If she's willing to divorce you and be with me, I will give her the most happiness. Situ Chong looked at Gu Jingze, there's no point in you coming here today. I dare to say it in front of you, and in front of everyone else I will dare to say it too. There were sparks everywhere. The two men stood along the corridor outside the office. They stared at each other and neither of them wanted to break it off first. Chapter 470. I'll make sure she can't survive in this world. At the company, Lin Che and Yu Minmin were chattering amongst themselves as they walked in. Remember to look at the script for Witch's Diary. I'll inform you about the audition when the time comes, Yu Minmin said. Of course I will. I was always a loyal fan of this book, you know. I really loved reading it in the past. I've read it countless times. I know the plot of the story by heart. Yu Minmin said, this time, the company is really pushing Qin Wanwan for the role. I wonder what drug she used to bewitch them. You should be more cautious. Lin Che said, I've only been away for a month. Has she already taken over the entire company? That's not really the case either. But when you were here, the two of you were equally matched in terms of reputation and fan numbers, so the resources allocated to each of you were also roughly the same. During your time away, she instantly surpassed you in terms of reputation. Therefore, you can imagine the number of resources she was given. Lin Che could only shrug wordlessly. Just then, the company called to inform Yu Minmin that they were about to have a meeting. Yu Minmin went in to attend the meeting and told Lin Che to return to her office first. Lin Che walked further in. While walking, she heard music coming from the practice room for the newbies. Lin Che walked towards the room and saw that the newbies were actually having dance practice. She leaned against the wall and watched them. However, it did not take a long time for one of the newbies to notice Lin Che. Lin Che. Wow, Sister Che. It really is Sister Che. It was not often that they could see celebrities like her who had gotten famous around the company. Even if they were in the company, they stayed together with their teams in the studios that were allocated to them and did not really walk around outside. Thus, when they suddenly saw Lin Che in the flesh in their practice room, the crowd of newbies could not hide their excitement and immediately walked towards her. Sister Che, why are you watching us practice? Lin Che smiled. It's nothing, it's nothing. Continue practicing, I just passed by and came to take a look. She had not been in a good mood since early in the morning. Right now, she felt as if her mood had improved a little as she looked at their lively and fresh faces. Perhaps it was because they made her think of the time before she had gotten popular when she had actually been just as clueless as they were now. Sister Che, we haven't seen you around the company for a long time. Did you go away for a training camp? One of the newbies looked at Lin Che and asked. Lin Che smiled. No, I didn't. What makes you think that? Your body looks like it changed a lot. Lin Che smiled. It's because I did a bit of training. Sister Che, quick, share your secret with us. You trained your body so beautifully. Your muscles don't look frightening at all. You have just a little bit of muscle and it really looks great, especially the muscle on your calves. Because Lin Che had been doing ballet, her physique had changed considerably. She felt that ballet was really good for her. Since she had started learning it, she was planning to continue practicing it whenever she had the time. She felt that it would probably aid her greatly in changing her physique. Lin Che smiled and said to everyone, there's no secret to it. I think it probably has something to do with the fact that I've been dancing. I don't really have any other secret. The noisy chatter over here attracted the attention of Qin Wanwan and her manager Sister Lin. Their interest was piqued even more when they heard that Lin Che was here. Qin Wanwan asked in a perplexed tone, why did Lin Che run off to the practice room for the newbies? Sister Lin scoffed and said, didn't she run over there to get some attention because everyone else has been mocking her? Recently, we've taken away a lot of her resources. She returned to find absolutely nothing, so she was definitely sorely disappointed. Poor thing, what a pity that she was frightened when she saw you and ran away for a month at such a crucial time. She was the one who gave you this opportunity. Qin Wanwan smiled coldly when she heard this. Lin Che was still engaging in mindless chatter over there. Ayo, Lin Che, what a rare sight. Why did you come to the company all of a sudden? I can count the number of times you've been to the company this month, Sister Lin said first and foremost. Lin Che turned her head to see Qin Wanwan and her staff walking towards her. She smiled and did not want to waste her breath on them. She herself was not in a good mood and could not be bothered to argue with anyone. She was just about to leave when Qin Wanwan grabbed her arm swiftly. Lin Che, what exactly have you been doing for the past month? I was so worried about you. She squeezed Lin Che's arm and felt that her upper arm had become much sturdier. Her muscles were evenly distributed and were much more defined. She could not help but think that sure enough, Lin Che had gone off for some secret training camp. In an instant, she put her guard up. She wondered what exactly Lin Che had up her sleeve. Lin Che pushed Qin Wanwan's hand aside in annoyance. I just went to handle some private matters. Sister Lin looked at the newbies with a face full of arrogance and her arms crossed over her chest. The newbies looked at the two celebrities before them. Then, they looked to the side at the manager Sister Lin. Sister Lin smiled and asked, did you go off in secret to do something for Witch's Diary? Recently, casting calls were being held for Witch's Diary. Everyone knew how important this television series was. If they could get a role in the series, they might become famous in the future. Hence, people inevitably suspected that Lin Che was preparing something since she had suddenly chosen to disappear for a period of time. Lin Che asked, Witch's Diary? Each person has to use their skills to compete for a role. What can I do in secret? You guys are thinking too much. There was no way that Sister Lin would believe her nonsense. Sister Lin stood there and said disdainfully, this role belongs to our Wanwan. I'm telling you this in advance. We're practically certain that Wanwan will get it. So don't waste your energy anymore. Take a good look at who exactly is running this company now. You've already lost the best resource you initially had. Right now, you don't have the right to express any opinion anymore. Lin Che smiled grimly and looked at them. She did not want to concern herself with what they were saying and turned around to leave. Sister Lin tugged at her arm and grabbed her hard. She threatened her viciously, I'm not Yu Minmin, that useless manager of yours. If you don't want to lose your chance at surviving in the entertainment industry, you'd best remember my words today. At this moment, behind her, someone dashed in swiftly. That person came to Lin Che's side like the wind. Before Lin Che and Qin Wanwan could even react, they saw the man push Sister Lin's hand away in one swift motion. As the man had used all of his strength, Sister Lin was immediately pushed to the side and she staggered a few steps before finding her balance. Sister Lin looked at the person before her strangely. Lin Che froze as well. "Situ, why are you here?" Situ Chong glanced coldly at Sister Lin at the side. Qin Wanwan's eyes stilled. "Situ? Who was that?" Situ Chong pulled Lin Che to his side and turned around to look at Sister Lin. Who was the one who said just now that she would kick Lin Che out of the entertainment industry? As she had not figured out who the person in front of her was, Sister Lin's eyes paused and she was at a loss for words. Situ Chong turned his head and immediately said to Lin Che, "Don't worry, Lin Che. If anyone kicks you out of the entertainment industry, I'll make sure she can't survive in this world." Situ Chong glared menacingly at Sister Lin. It sent shivers up her body.